College Shine presents an interview with Professor Charles Ogletree. He's an Ivy League law professor, outspoken civil rights attorney and educator, television commentator and moderator, and most of all, a man of quiet dignity with a heart for justice. Professor Ogletree, we'd love to know how you figured out what to study in college.
When I was in college at Stanford, a number of things influenced my studies. Half of it was what I learned in the classroom, and half of it was what I learned outside the classroom. And that's a valuable lesson. You can learn as much about life and about opportunities and talking to people in a variety of lives. At Stanford, Sinclair Drake was my professor and mentor. He's the one who told me about the idea of looking at both a PhD when I finished college in public relations or in international relations. At the same time, I met Angela Davis when she was in the Women's Detention Center in Palo Alto after she was arrested and going to trial. That made me want to be a lawyer. So I studied both things, both the international relations courses and the law classes, justice classes, because I knew I wanted to do something with justice, either locally in the law context or globally, as we're talking about the liberation of South Africa and Zimbabwe and other places then. But the most important thing was that every day I worked hard, read as much as I could, learned as much as I could, but realized that if I'm going to be successful, it's not what you learn in the books, it's how you apply it to your life.
When you look over your educational career or path, is there anything that you would change or do differently?
I think I would have changed my trajectory, done some things earlier, and I always know that don't be afraid to take a chance because it might prove to be fruitful. And if it's a failure, Thomas Jefferson failed a lot of times, Thomas Edison failed a lot of times. We all fail before we succeed, and that's part of growing up in life.
What is the best advice that you have for our youth regarding education?
Don't be afraid of a challenge. Don't be afraid to strive to do something that may seem difficult or even impossible. Don't be afraid to love reading. When I was a kid, I wrote in my book, All Deliberate Speed, about my passion for going to the public library almost every night when I had a free time and every weekend. And those little gold stars that the librarian would put on my name on the chart every time I read a book meant something to me. As a poor kid, largely raised by a single parent with 5 other siblings, it was tough, but we didn't know we were poor, and even if we were poor, when I was reading those books, I became Robinson Crusoe, I became Huckleberry Finn, I became someone who understood that I could travel anywhere, I could be anywhere, and every time that train that came down the Pacific Railroad in Merced, my hometown, every time that train was on it, I could imagine how far could I go, would I get off here, where would I stay? But I could leave the challenges I had in life, and that's what made it such a big difference to me.
So any advice for students aspiring to Harvard or other Ivy League institutions?
I think that students should be striving for the highest level of success they can have, whether it's Harvard or Howard, whether it's Yale or Morehouse or Spelman or Fisk or Stanford or Chicago. They should look for what they want and not be facing any impediments to what they can achieve.
Is there anything that you'd love to share with our College Shine youth that perhaps I haven't yet covered?
Everything's possible, and everything they do may make a difference. So it's dream big, to have senses about making a difference. And I think there's really one final thing. Public service is important. People can make money, they can be successful, but do something for the community. Lift as you climb, as I've said over and over again. Don't just arrive someplace and celebrate the fact that you're there. Open up doors for others. That's what's key. And I've tried to do that all my life because I know people who I don't even know, who I may not even realize, have lifted me up. Not that they went to Harvard or Stanford or had any degrees, but they had knowledge and a lot of sense and a lot of values, and those things stay with me forever. So young people can do any and all of that. And I'm just waiting for many of them to come and replace me and tell me it's time to move over. It's time for me to hand them the baton, because they are the generation that can and will make an important difference in our lives.